My name is Kevin Moffitt. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Accounting and Information Systems in the Rutgers Business School. Thank you for listening to my presentation that I call a primer on text analytics for accountants. I hope you will find this presentation valuable. To begin this presentation, let's listen to some graphic 911 calls. If your 2-year-old is in your lap and you need some time to put them in the other room to play the iPad, go ahead and pause the presentation now. The first call that you're going to listen to is from the boyfriend of a girl who fell from a hotel room. Let's listen in.
No emergency.
My girlfriend just jumped off the balcony of our hotel room.
Okay, is she suicidal?
I don't know. He was.
Okay, stay on the line with me for the paramedics. You stay on the phone, okay? What room number are you in?
Oh my God, I don't even know what number.
You're at 8701 World Center Drive? Orange County was a transfer.
Hello? Oh my God.
What's the address you need help at?
God damn it, my girlfriend just jumped off.
What's the address, sir?
It's a World Marriott.
Okay. What's going on, sir?
I don't know. She was leaning over the side, and I walked inside, and I hear and then, God, you got to have what's on now, sir.
I understand. You want to know for side of what?
Do you think this caller was telling the truth? Do you think he would make a good candidate for your own daughter's boyfriend? Let's hear another call. This time a man calls 911 because he says his wife fell asleep face down in a bathtub and died.
911, what's the emergency? My wife fell asleep in the bathtub and I think she's dead. What's the address? 5250 Crested Owl Court, Morrow, Ohio. Okay, I need you to calm down for me. I can't understand the address. What was it? 5250 Crested Owl Court. 5250 Crested Owl in Hamilton Township? Yes, Morrow, Ohio. What's going on? She fell asleep in the bathtub. I think I was downstairs. I just came up here and she was laying face down in the bathtub. In the water? Yes. How old is she? She's 24.
So that sounded suspicious. He thinks she fell asleep and he thinks she's dead, but he's going to have the police come over just to make sure. So let's listen to caller number 3, find out what his story is.
And what's going on?
The parking lot, the sports editor, Kent, laying in the ground, pool of blood. Looks like he's been shot or something.
Okay, he's on the parking lot behind the Tribune on the KFC side?
Yes.
Who did you see in the area?
I saw 2 guys in the area.
Were they white or black?
White, I'd say 1920.
What were they wearing?
I don't know. This gal, she saw them. She walked out to smoke a cigarette, saw them duck down behind the car.
Okay.
I looked out and saw them, and I said, what's going on? I knew it was Kent's car, and I said, Kent? And they didn't look up. Nobody did anything. Somebody's been hurt, man.
Okay, so you saw them duck down behind his car?
Yes.
Okay. So why did I have you listen to these 911 calls? Well, I think that what you'll see is they illustrate how text mining can be used in accounting research and accounting applications. So let's go on and talk about an exploratory study that was conducted by an Ohio lieutenant police officer named Tracy Harpster. And the name of the study was Analyzing 911 Homicide Calls for Indicators of Guilt or Innocence, and it was published in 2009 in a journal called Homicide Studies. In this study, transcripts of 911 calls, like the ones you just heard, were manually tagged, manually coded by researchers to identify the presence of specific verbal cues. The purpose of the study was to determine the differences between guilty and innocent 911 callers who reported a murder. The guilty callers were deceptive in this sample because they were always posing as innocent people. So they would lie about not committing the murder. This study identified several indicators of guilt. These are things that the guilty callers did and the innocent callers didn't do as much of. And so they identified including extraneous information. Guilty callers were inappropriately polite. They were trying to get in with the good graces of the 911 operator. They didn't ask for help as much as the innocent callers. And they were evasive. So my colleague and I were wondering if we could replicate this study by doing an automated analysis of transcripts. So basically take the same approach of dividing 911 calls into two sets. One set are those guilty callers who pretended to be innocent and reported a murder, and those innocent callers who reported a murder. And see if we can use automated techniques to look for cues in the transcripts and discriminate between guilty and innocent callers. So we used a tool called Linguistic Inquiry and Word Count, which is basically a general purpose set of dictionaries, and I'll go into what dictionaries are later. Basically, they're groups of words. And we use this tool to look for the cues that would discriminate between guilty and innocent callers. So this is what we found. Truth tellers, or the innocent callers, display much more negative emotion than deceptive callers. So innocent callers were not worried about maybe rubbing the 911 caller the wrong way. They were just in shock, in pain, and used terms that sort of fit the situation. They also would refer to singular others, she or he. They would talk about individuals and not groups of people. There were more numbers found in their transcripts. So whether that's an address or phone number, they were quick to provide and provided often this important information to the 911 operators. And then they also used more generic names of locations, such as apartment or garage, and to help give accurate and helpful information to responders. These were called leisure terms under the tool we use. Deceivers, on the other hand, would use third-person pronouns. So this is a way of distancing yourself from what's being said or from the actions that took place. So if you say they, or they also tried to share blame. So when they were talking about themselves, they'd say we instead of me. So they didn't want to put themselves right in the situation. They would use more negation terms and assent words. So what does this mean? They would say yes, no, and cut off the rest of the dialogue. So they weren't detailed answers to a lot of the questions, just simple yeses and nos. And then they would also tell the operator to wait or hold more often. There was a caller that was asked to do CPR on the victim, and they're just like, wait, no, hold on. That's gross. They're already dead. Why would I do CPR? So these were the distinguishing factors between innocent callers and guilty callers. So we compiled this list of 11 things to do or not to do when calling 911 to report a homicide. These were the things that we found interesting that guilty people did that innocent people didn't do. So this is not an endorsement, or this is not to give ideas on how to avoid detection in the future. So take this in the context of research. So first of all, don't start talking before you hear the operator or ringtone. The recording starts very early. Some of these 911 calls, the phone's ringing, you can hear the phone ringing, and the guilty people are planning on what they're going to say while the phone's ringing. If the phone's ringing, you're being recorded. So, second, if you're deceptive, make sure you use F words, curse words, because only the truthful people were using a lot of swear words in the sample we looked at. If you are deceptive, make sure you're very you're showing your negative emotion and anxiety instead of repressing it. You need your attitude to fit the situation. You should try to refer to the victim once in a while, something that guilty people didn't want to do. When the operator asks if you want to do CPR, don't be reluctant. If you need to do 30 compressions, make sure that the time elapsed to fit what you're being asked to do. If you're faking your crying or faking your distress, it sounds really fake. Don't lie about the location of the body, because inconsistencies will prove you wrong. Give your address several times, because truthful people tend to give address and phone number information more often. Don't ask the 911 operator to wait or hold on. Just because you're having cognitive load problems, you should try to copy the multitasking abilities of a truthful person. Try to use I instead of we. Don't use they when he or she should work. Finally, try to come up with a more original criminal description than a black guy dressed in a black top and black pants. So 911 calls are perhaps the most convenient type of data for doing this type of research, that is, discriminating between truth tellers and deceivers. Just the context lends itself to this exercise. For example, 911 calls are unscripted conversations. So you're getting something completely random, basically, from the 911 call. The caller can't plan for every question that's going to be asked, and they've probably never been in this type of situation before. So what you're getting is going to be, it's not going to be doctored up, you could say. The calls are extremely high stakes, so there's a lot of personal investment. And if there's, for example, nothing at stake, then someone who would normally tell the truth wouldn't care if they lied, and someone who lied wouldn't care if they told the truth. So the high stakes are important. It's very emotionally charged, so those who are innocent and those who are guilty should have completely different emotions going in. So they should be, what they say should be affected by how they feel. And of course, innocent and guilty, whether if you committed murder or not, is going to change quite a bit how you feel. So it should be reflected in what you say in these 911 calls. So it turns out our findings were really similar to what were found in the manual analysis of the 911 calls. which is what gets us so excited about this type of research. Why I'm excited to take this type of research and try to apply it to the accounting domain. So, only slightly less nefarious than those who lie during 911 homicide calls are those C-level executives who lie during quarterly conference calls to analysts. So, what question do I want to ask here? Are there linguistic differences between CEO responses to questions from analysts? So the CEOs are divided into two groups, just like the 911 callers are divided into two groups. There are CEOs who are in charge of companies that restate their earnings, and then there are those CEOs who are in charge of companies who do not restate their earnings. So those CEOs who gave a conference call to these analysts and ended up restating their earnings for that quarter are put into one group. And the CEOs who didn't, whose company didn't restate their earnings for that quarter are the other group. So we have this matched sample of basically, innocent and guilty CEOs in a sense, because one set of CEOs obviously didn't provide enough information to the analysts and had to restate their earnings for that quarter. So the implication is that these CEOs who are guilty had to hide the true health of their company through deceit, obfuscation, or other maneuvers. So the overall hypothesis in this study was my idea that what we had thought of in the past was that when people lie, they're under they have higher cognitive load. That is, there's more going on in their mind. There's more processes in their mind that are being used up because they're having to think of lies, think of ways to deceive the person they're talking to. So one way these deception can be related, or can be one of the byproducts of this cognitive load, is more ums, ers, uhs. So deceivers should be like thinking about what they're going to lie about. So those CEOs who didn't restate would have more fluent speech, and my thought was I could discriminate between the CEOs in this way. So let's do an exercise. Let's take a listen to the couple samples. I want you to think which of these two CEOs restated their earnings. So let's play this audio. We'll follow, this is a transcript of part of the audio, so 3 paragraphs. And the way that this audio works is there's someone asking questions, but that's been taken out. I'm just looking at the transcripts from what the CEO said. And this comes after the first 10 minutes, which is just a statement, presentation by the company, and we're in the Q&A session now. So these are the first 5 minutes of the Q&A. So we won't listen to the full 5 minutes for each CEO, just a portion. So here's CEO number 1.
Good morning. We're pleased with the progress we made during our third quarter. We positioned our company well before the quarter to concentrate on certain vital initiatives that would both fix some problem areas and lay the groundwork for restoring us to high-quality growth. Fred, in addition to the procurement of new people, we promoted a number of qualified people here recently. We've spent a lot of time on retention, making sure we don't lose important people as well. We restore this business We've gone, in some cases, to a flatter organizational structure where we can make decisions a lot quicker. As Joe mentioned, we put the sleepwear under our baby leadership, which is a super competent team. So I think overall we've looked at this at the macro level as well, not just filling in some key spots. In research, which we had not done, and we've invested in understanding each of these brands more, and we've done the stacks research, completed that on finding the optimum price and margin thresholds for every core product under our brands. We've begun online consumer surveys. We're doing consumer panels on every one of our product lines. And you can't understate the importance. We put $20 million into upgrading our core products as we move into 2008. So it's far beyond just a people issue. Insufficient inventory caused us a hell of a lot of grief, and that's going to pay its way. And as we move through the next couple of years, having a senior executive over planning and allocations, we'll get a lot better, not only having the proper level of inventory, but the proper mix, and that will materially improve profitability. So I don't think investments, we don't have a lack of investments. Let's put it that way.
Great.
Okay, let's go ahead and listen to the second CEO. Remember, one of these CEOs actually came from a company that restated earnings for that quarter. And you're supposed to try and figure out which it was.
Thanks, Mary Ellen, and good morning, everyone. We're very pleased to report a strong quarterly results. We generated 57 cents per diluted share in FFO for the quarter, exceeding analyst consensus estimate of 54 cents and equating to a 16.3% increase in FFO per share year over year. John, this is Rand. Obviously there are other people talking about coming into the market. There are others that have taken land positions. That's going to happen as markets mature. We do think we have the best sites in the marketplace, particularly that can service the major customers, both existing customers at Fort Meade and the new ones coming in from BRAC. And we've got the lowest cost basis, and we're ahead of the others in terms of development underway. So, we understand there will be competition out there. We're the dominant player in that marketplace, and we intend to stay that way and be very aggressive in terms of maintaining our market share.
Okay. In an exercise like this, it is difficult to determine which company restated their earnings. I took transcripts of a matched sample of companies to detect the differences, these differences in how much they used disfluencies in their speech, the ums, ers, and ahs, to see if that could help me discriminate between the two. And it did. If you look at the second bullet point, those CEOs that did not restate their earnings, so we'll say they come from truthful companies, they actually had more disfluencies. They had more ums, ers, ahs, repeated words, like they say the, or we are going to. So I had significant results in the opposite direction that I predicted. Now, why would this be? Well, there's this idea of a burden of truth. So if someone is going to be truthful and they're asked difficult questions and they're trying to be as exact as possible, then they need to think through their answers on the fly, and they might have more disfluencies as a result. Deceivers, on the other hand, have rehearsed what they're going to say. So when a question comes up related to a talking point they've prepared, it's just a matter of spitting out what they've already prepared. So that's one idea behind what might be going on here. Now, other measures we looked at were the cohesiveness of the text. So cohesiveness has to do with, are adjacent sentences and paragraphs conceptually similar? In other words, is there one topic that's being developed over time, cross sentences, or are they saying one sentence about one thing and then another sentence about another thing without any cohesiveness between what they're saying? And restaters had less cohesiveness. So does this mean they're jumping around from topic to topic? Is that a result of a lot of different questions being asked? Or in one question, what we're seeing is that in one question within one paragraph, cross sentences, the cohesiveness measures show that restaters are not cohesive. So I want to compare this study that I just described to another study in which we looked at spontaneous interviews. Okay, spontaneous interviews, we had these students come in and we just asked them a series of questions. They had no time to prepare. They were unfamiliar with what questions would be asked. It's different than the quarterly analyst calls. Okay, you know they're coming. They come every quarter. You have talking points prepared. You know you're an expert in the domain that you're talking about. So very different from a spontaneous type interview. So you need to consider these type of factors when you're analyzing text. So in a sense, when deceivers are stuck in these spontaneous interview studies, they've been found to speak less. They don't say as much as truth tellers. Truth tellers say more. But when we look at data sets where there's time to prepare, you can sit down and compose an email, you sit down and compose a text, the deceivers have lengthier responses than the truth tellers. So they're putting more effort into convincing the reader that they're being honest, and when they're trying to simulate honesty, then they end up putting more text, than putting more down on paper than the truth tellers. Now, what about the 911 calls versus the quarterly analyst calls? Well, the 911 calls were great. We used the differences, the linguistic differences, to classify those 911 calls with 90% accuracy. So if you can do the same thing with quarterly analyst calls, then that's a great tool for investors and for auditors. So so what can we say about the similarities and differences between the two sets of data? Well, the 911 calls describe the gory scenes, sometimes by the guilty people themselves. Quarterly analyst calls are responses to questions about the company's health, strategy, and future outlook. The 911 calls are emotionally charged and are in response to a horrific event and are spontaneous in their nature. They occur almost immediately after the fact, and callers expect to be immediately in contact with authorities, if not confronted by them. Analyst calls, on the other hand, begin with a prepared statement. CEOs are often asked about typical business events. And while analysts can be confrontational, they are not law enforcement. But while different, both sets of data share similarities. For instance, each has a measure of spontaneity. CEOs' responses to questions are off the cuff, can be off the cuff, just as 911 callers' responses are. Each are part of an interview process, and each can be very high stakes. Now, you may think it's silly to compare 911 calls to quarterly conference calls, But analyzing the context in this way is what must be done in textual analysis if we want to understand the effects of contextual factors on verbal expression. Within the area of law enforcement, the opposite of a 911 call in terms of contextual similarity might be written statements by victims, witnesses, or suspects put together with the help of a lawyer. Lawyers are careful to craft statements that move their clients away from suspicion of guilt, or at least nothing damning should be included in such statements. Similarly, when you compare quarterly analyst calls to an MD&A, for example, the text included in annual reports is much different than CEO responses to interview questions. The MD&A, for example, could have passed through many hands and have been seen by a countless number of eyes before being published. If a fraudulent company creates an MD&A, then they should be as careful as possible to appear legitimate in all of their business practices. Yet, despite the best care taken to hide their tracks, it is reasonable to assume that even in statements prepared by a committee, there will be differences in the text between MD&As from fraudulent and non-fraudulent companies, simply because the approach to writing the MD&A is different. Consider that a fraudulent company is writing with the goal to present facts and misinformation in such a way as to appear as a normal, law-abiding institution. Non-fraudulent companies, on the other hand, have no such concerns and are simply presenting information in its true light. Even though each type of company is trying to achieve the same outcome, that is, being perceived as a law-abiding organization, the approach is different, leading researchers to believe that these differences can be detected. This leads to another interesting study in which a matched sample of MD&As from 101 fraudulent companies and 101 non-fraudulent companies was analyzed in an exploratory study to identify the most common phrases found in each class of MD&A. When we were looking at these phrases, we mirrored a methodology used in the linguistics literature called lexical bundle analysis. So what lexical bundle analysis does is it looks at the top phrases found in a corpus of text. So first, all the top phrases are identified, and those are the ones that occur at least 20 times per million words in a corpus. So in this study, it was comparing the lexical bundles found in history journals and the lexical bundles found in biology journals. The bundles with stars next to them occur in both corpora, which means the bundles without stars don't even qualify as lexical bundles in the other corpus. So let's see, the number one bundle for history journals at the same time. It is interesting to think of because time and history go hand in hand, so that's the top bundle. And it occurs 144 times per million words in history journals. So let's look down the list and see if it's in the top 20 bundles in biology journals at the same time. No, it's not in the top 20. So the second top bundle in history journals, the end of the, is another bundle where has a temporal word in it, end. And that's fitting, of course, because it's in a history journal. Now that's the fifth most common bundle in biology journals. So maybe in biology journals talking about the end of the sternum. I don't know. So, but several of these bundles don't even appear in the other corpus. So there's a definite difference in this level of analysis between the two corpora and the types of phrases that are found there. So I was looking to see if there were different phrases found in fraudulent and non-fraudulent MD&As. And you can see that these bundles are all 4 words long. So that's what you'll see in my lexical bundle analysis of fraudulent and non-fraudulent MD&As. So let's look at the first line here. Was primarily due to. Occurred 205 times per million words in the fraudulent MD&As. 268 times per million words in the non-fraudulent MD&As. So you might say there's some difference, but I don't have any reason to. Maybe some of you do. I haven't assigned that to say, this definitely indicates fraud or not, because they use this phrase. And the second phrase is highlighted because it's actually a smaller part of a larger phrase. So if you see process, research and development, and the fourth phrase, in process, research and the third to last phrase, research and development expenses. So the whole phrase is in process, research and development expenses. So they really belong together as a 6-word phrase. And there were the first two, process, research and development, and in process, research and, there were big differences between the fraud companies and non-fraud companies. It looks like they were used almost 3 times as much in fraudulent companies. So that is an absolute sign of a phrase that's used more often by fraudulent companies than non-fraudulent companies. In the fourth quarter in the United States, so there are literally hundreds of words, hundreds of phrases that I analyzed. Now, if you look at the top phrases here and the frequency per million, so you can see here the top phrase was in history journals was used 144 times per million words. And then in the biology journal, it's 111 times per million words. And then it drops quite a bit after 5 or so, it gets halved, and then it drops slower after that. And you look at the lexical bundles in the MD&As, and look how many times they're used. 205 times per million words. And everything here, almost all of them, are more common than even the top lexical bundle. So what does this mean? The top lexical bundle in the history or biology journal. So what does this mean? It means that in the MD&As, phrases are recycled a lot more than in academic journals. And academic journals are pretty formulaic when you talk about composed compositions of text. If you compare an academic journal to fiction or to newspaper articles, academic journals are much more formulaic. And MD&As and financial statements are much more formulaic than academic journals. But then again, to be fair, the topic is always the same. There's topics relatively similar across MD&As. Discussing the health of the company, competition, future outlook, risks. So, just thought that was an interesting note. So here are some lexical bundles that might have some interesting meanings between fraud and non-fraud companies. So we look at in-process research and development, and goodwill and other intangible assets. Could indicate creative acquisition accounting. And fraudulent companies use these phrases at a higher rate, especially the in-process research and development, than the non-fraud companies. Then there's the bundle disposition of long-lived assets. It's not used as much as in-process research and development, but this is a way to manipulate earnings and improve your cost and expense structure for the future. And it's completely legitimate if used in the proper context, but it can be misused, and therefore, in the fraudulent companies, this term appears more often. Fair value accounting, it's subjective, and it is something that's used and seen more with fraudulent companies. 50% more in fraudulent companies. And then foreign currency exchange adjustments are mentioned twice as much in fraudulent companies than non-fraudulent companies. So these are indicators and not hard evidence, but indicators that if you have enough of these types of phrases for a company, then you might want to become more suspicious when performing your audit. So, what are the types of data that have been looked at and still need to be looked at for textual analyses in the accounting domain? We have the annual statements, including and quarterly financial statements, proxy statements, president's letters to shareholders, internal emails, if possible, press releases, news articles, and social sites, such as blogs that are maintained by the company or maintained by individual employees, Facebook profiles, and LinkedIn profiles. So when you're analyzing documents, the level of analysis can occur at the individual word level, at the phrase level, at the sentence level, paragraph level, or the document level. So what does this mean? For example, at the word level, sometimes researchers just want to know, or investigators want to know, how many times a particular word occurs in the text. For example, you might want to count the number of times the word invest is mentioned in a document. But counting the times the word invest occurs in a document doesn't accurately portray the perhaps what you're looking for. For example, there are permutations of the word invest that you might want to count. So what if you count at all times the word invest, regardless of what came after it? So invest, then you might count investment, invests, investor. Then you might capture words you don't intend to, like investigate. Also, are we interested in synonymous words? You know, if we say invest means you want to make money. Okay. So some of these words might be synonymous with that. Advance, back, endow, entrust, provide, put up dough, lend, loan, etc. So maybe you want to count those words too to come up with the total number of times that the word invest, as you mean it, occurs in a document. So when you're doing this analysis by using synonyms, what you can do is combine all the similar words into one set. Those are called dictionaries or lexicons. So these dictionary-based analysis combine words that are synonymous, and then they give the dictionary a name. So maybe we'll call it the Make Money Dictionary. So we're going to count the word invest. And invest with a star means any invest plus any word that contains the word invest in it. So investment, investor. They would even count investigate in this sense. So you have all these words, and you might even decide to include words like schemes, steal, scheme is on there twice, and cheat. So these could all be part of the Make Money Dictionary. So at the end of the day, if invest occurs 5 times, advance occurs 10 times, back 3 times, so we're up to 18. So say that's it. Make Money gets a score of 18. So Make Money appeared 18 times in the document, and that's how dictionary-based analysis works. Now there are some dictionaries that have been made for doing accounting research, and those are by a professor named Bill McDonald at Notre Dame. And let's open up his webpage and take a look at the word lists that he's come up with. So he's come up with some word lists that are related to accounting and finance. So negative words such as abandon, abandoning, abandonment. And he creates a list of hundreds of words that whenever they're mentioned, in a financial statement and an analyst's opinion of a company, these are negative things. The problem with this is, say the word no is put in there right before the negative word, or not. So, not calamitous, no closings, no coercion. Then now they're not negative. Sometimes they're actually positive, but they're being, no circumventions is good, circumventions is bad. But these dictionary-based approach are primitive in the sense they take the words out of context. They don't look at the surrounding words. So you might be counting something as negative when you should be counting it as positive. So these are a list of negative words. And typically, I've found decent results with these dictionary-based approaches. So that's why they keep being used, because they work pretty well. There's another set of dictionaries that's used by a lot of researchers and practitioners, and it's called Luke. And this is what I used for the 911 study. And Luke was a set of general purpose dictionaries developed by a psychologist named last name Pennebaker. And Luke has a lot of different dictionaries associated with it. Let's go ahead and look at the Luke webpage. So if you go to How It Works tab, you can see a list of the types of dictionaries. So psychological processes, dictionaries based on social processes, mate, talk, date, child, dictionaries based on family, daughter, husband, aunt. Then there are some money type dictionaries, money, audit, cash, work, job, majors, Xerox. So all these words have been found and combined into dictionaries that they all belong to in a way. But the problem is, again, you see the word block is under inhibition. Well, you could be blocking out bad memories, something like that, but you could be blocking a shot in a basketball game. And that's, I guess you're inhibiting someone from scoring, but it's not a psychological process. Maybe you're building with blocks. Now you're building a tower with blocks, you're a little kid. No, this is not inhibition. In a sense, it's the opposite. You're being creative, you're building something. So that's how these dictionaries work. They look at words out of context. These they work okay, but they don't get past the problem of a word having multiple meanings. So what if you did want to overcome this problem of words with multiple meanings? Well, that's a whole area in itself called word sense disambiguation. And word sense disambiguation deals with techniques for automatically detecting the sense of a word. So if a computer sees the word, like invest, it knows it's talking about investing money, or if it's talking about investing the president with power. So if it sees the word interest, it knows whether it means a return on your investment or the way a boy feels about a girl. Word sense disambiguation is an unconquered frontier of automated textual analysis, but as the corpus of digitized text grows, the problem is diminishing in size. That's because the main technique for disambiguation is to look at each word in its context. So you look at the word interest and you look at the context. It's actually he has interest in her. You know what type of interest it's talking about. Well, with the machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence algorithms, companies like Google and researchers are able to take information off the web. And since it's so much text on there, they're able to build models and they're able to discover the sense of a word as long as you know which words are surrounding it. So it's like taking, to look at the dictionary approach, you look at a single word. But for a word sense disambiguation exercise, you look for as many words as possible surrounding that word, then you know what that single word actually means. So let's go back to the presentation. So we've talked about doing a dictionary analysis of text. Another way of analyzing text is to look at the part of speech, because that tells you a lot about the words that are being used. So if you know whether a word is a noun or a verb, adjective or adverb, then you know something. And part of speech tagging is an automated process for taking digitized text and then saying what part of speech a word is. And I'll give you some examples of how that's used. So there are different part of speech taggers out there, and they're all based on manually coded text. That is, someone sat down with some documents and they said, this is a verb, this is a noun, this is an adjective, this is a determinant, this is a preposition, this is any number of things. This is punctuation mark. So the Penn Treebank is one of these data sets where words were manually tagged, and now they're used as models for automatic tagging. Penn Treebank is the part that I use is based off of Wall Street Journal articles, which makes it really nice for analyzing the type of language that we're interested in. So the Wall Street Journal contains financial-related terms, accounting-related terms, and so these terms have been already manually tagged and now can be used to automatically process text and determine the part of speech for a word. There's no other Treebank or corpus out there that's used a similar data set like the Wall Street Journal for the manual tagging process. So it's really the gold standard for accounting and finance-related research for part of speech tagging. So this is the Penn Treebank Tag set. There are 36 of the tags listed here. Okay, there's other tags that just sit like commas, dashes, different punctuation characters. So basically, what you get after using the Penn Treebank on your text is it shows a word, comma, it's part of speech. So here are some tags that I used in a research project. So the speech tags listed on the left, those are the Penn Treebank tags you just saw. Description of the tag is in the next column. So the top row we see a noun, singular. And here's an example, table accountant. And then the linguistic cue I used it in is expressivity. Almost all these are for expressivity because expressivity is a measure of total adverbs and adjectives divided by the total nouns and verbs. Basically the ratio, telling you how much color and description there is in a text compared to just saying what's in the text. So how many adverbs and adjectives are there compared to just the nouns and verbs that tell you what it is in the text, and then the adjectives and adverbs describe that. So if there's a high expressivity score, it means you have lots of descriptive words in your text. Okay. So all the nouns and adverbs, adjectives, and verbs are part of the expressivity linguistic cue. Let's go down to VBD. That's past tense verbs. I can detect whether a sentence is in the past tense or not. So it's really interesting because one of the exercises that's commonly done is say, okay, here's a past tense sentence, and this is from a CEO transcript. Is the CEO being negative about the past or positive about the past? So I use this in conjunction with the dictionary. Look for positive, negative words, and do these occur in a past tense sentence, present tense sentence, or a future tense sentence? Okay, let's go down to VBN, passive voice. VBN, verb past participle. So that's one of the types of parts of speech that you'll find when passive voice is used. So passive voice is when you take the subject. It's when you take, for example, I'm not a linguist, so I don't want to. I'll just give you an example. So I have eaten a dog. Okay, so I'm the subject, the dog's the object, and I've eaten it. Well, I could say a dog was eaten. So you have the object in there, you have, and you know he was eaten, but the subject's missing from the sentence. We just know a dog was eaten, but we don't know who did it. Like Bill Clinton said, he didn't say, I made a mistake. He said, mistakes were made. So the passive voice is used to distance yourself from the action that took place and the object that was acted upon. So it's generally thought that deceivers, people who don't want to take responsibility for what they're talking about, use the passive voice. They just don't like saying, I killed someone. Let's say some person was killed. Okay. So what else can we do with parts of speech? So the modal auxiliary, the last one here, example, may or should. These are types of words that are not definitive. They leave facts or up in the air. If something should happen, may have happened, but they're not definitive. Okay. So here are some linguistic measures from a study that used some of Bill McDonald's financial dictionaries and Penn Treebank. So we measured expressivity, and you calculate it by dividing the total number of adverbs and adjectives by the total number of nouns and verbs. And it tells you how descriptive the speech is. Passive voice, we just talked about. Modal auxiliary, we talked about. And tense, we talked about. So this is a real study we did, and then we looked at positive words, negative words, and uncertainty words from the Bill McDonald Financial Dictionaries. So how did I go about doing this? Well, I built a lot of this into a tool called Splice. And Splice is a tool hosted at the University of Arizona, where I got my degree, and it contains a lot of these linguistic measures and a GUI for processing your text. So you don't have to know how to program to process a lot of this text. You can use Luke or LIWC. You can use Splice and process a lot of your text. And Splice allows you to enter custom dictionaries. So you can follow this link to learn more about Splice. So tools like Splice work, like I said, with dictionaries, part-of-speech tagging, and also something called regular expressions. And regular expressions, what are they? They're a powerful means for matching text. So what does that mean, and why is that important? Well, I'm going to just show you a few things right now that can be done using regular expressions. We'll start with the most basic example. So imagine you're using Microsoft Word, and you use the Find feature. You hit Control F, and you push A. You want to find all the A's. And you press Enter, and you go next. You find all the A's in a document. That's fine. That's how regular expression works. Imagine you're typing a regular expression into that Find, and you type in an A, and it matches an A. That's fine. That's regular expression. Can be that simple. And it's just a new term you got to wrap your head around. But if you can use these regular expressions, you're really going to be a power user when extracting information from text. Let's go to another example. AB matches AB. So you look for all the ABs in the text. Okay. Slightly more complex than the previous example, but definitely along the same lines. Here's another example. Here we're using a special character, a star. Star means you match the previous regular expression, which was just the A. You match that 0 to infinity times. So if you type, imagine Microsoft Word takes in regular expressions when you search for things. Hit Control F, you type in A star. And you go through the document. Remember, star matches A 0 to infinity times. So it'll match nothing, which is the double quotes. It'll match A once. It'll match A twice. It'll match A 7 times. So A star represents everything there. Okay? A star means the regular expression right before it, which was the letter A. Okay? It'll match 0 to infinity times. So A star matches all those things. In the first two regular expressions, you have A, AB. There's no star, so they simply just match what's there. When you start adding these special regular expression characters, then they change the behavior of these letters, and that's what makes them regular expressions powerful. A plus. So plus is like a star. A plus says that A must be matched 1 to infinity times. So A plus would match an A, a double A, 7 A's, 20 A's, 100 A's in a row, but it wouldn't match an empty string, or it wouldn't match nothing. Okay, A star would match nothing, but A plus wouldn't match nothing, because plus means the A has to be there 1 or more times. So far, so good? Okay. Getting a little more complicated here. AB star. If you had AB star without those parentheses, it would mean A then the letter B 0 to infinity times. But AB is in parentheses, so AB is one regular expression. So it's wrapped in parentheses, so the star applies to all A and B. So AB star matches nothing, matches AB once, matches AB, 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 AB. But it wouldn't match AB, A, because the A and B have to be together. So AB, 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 AB. Not AB, AB, A. Wouldn't match that. It would just match AB, 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 AB. Okay? So, started with just an A, did the A star, now here's an AB in parentheses, and star. Next one's more complicated. No, it's not. It's another symbol. It's the dot. A dot matches anything. It's like an A. An A would, or a B. You know, putting it there works the same way as an A. You know, A matches A just once. You know, it wouldn't match AA. Well, dot matches anything once. So it matches the letter A, matches a 4, matches a pound sign, matches parentheses, matches capital A, because these are case sensitive, matches a capital B. So a dot matches anything once. Okay? Okay. Where are we going with this? You'll see. Now, a W would match a W, but a slash W has a special meaning. It matches any alphanumeric character. So it matches A, capital A, B, capital B, C, capital C, D, capital D, matches a 1, matches a 9, matches a 0. So all alphanumeric characters can be matched with a slash W. Okay? Where are we going with this? You'll see. So imagine you went to Word, and it took in regular expressions, you know, when you did find. You said find period, and period matches, you know, basically match everything in the document, you know. It go letter by letter, matches this, matches this, matches this, matches this. And slash W, almost the same thing, but it doesn't match symbols. All right, so let's put some of this together. Let's match an email address. Okay. Slash W plus. Slash W. We'll start with slash W matches any alphanumeric character. And the plus matches that one or more times. So what this is saying is we have to have one or more alphanumeric characters in a row. Okay? So it's going to match that. Then we want to find an @ symbol. Okay? After we see a series of alphanumeric characters and an @ symbol, we'll want more alphanumeric characters. Then we want a period. Now, we can't just put a period in by itself, because a period matches anything. We want to actually match a period. So we're going to put a slash period. So, slash period means we're going to actually match a period. A slash is called an escape character. So we're escaping the period so that it matches an actual period. Otherwise, it's a special symbol, right? So we want a sequence of alphanumeric characters, an @ sign, another sequence of alphanumeric characters, a period, and then a CONM. So what does this resemble? It looks like an email address. Let's look and see how it works. I'm saying that this would match kmoff@email.com. So kmoff would match the slash W plus. Slash W plus means one or more alphanumeric characters. Kmoff is one or more alphanumeric characters. Then there's an @ okay, @ yes. Another series of alphanumeric characters, email, a dot, okay, dot, and a com. So what I'm saying is in Word, if Word allowed you to type in regular expressions to find stuff in text, I want to find, and now I don't have to search for a specific email address. I don't have to search for kamoff@email.com. I just type this in, and it would theoretically show all the email addresses in the text. Help me find all the email addresses. So you can see now how this is a real flexible way of matching text. So this wouldn't match this second email address. Why wouldn't it match this email address? Well, I think I heard you think it. It's because of this period right here. This period does not match any part of this regular expression. Because what we're looking for is a sequence of alphanumeric characters, the K, that's fine, we just need one, and then an at, but there's no at, period. So it doesn't match. So this regular expression does not match this email address. Okay, so let's look at a way of matching phone numbers. Now, what does a phone number start with? Well, sometimes it starts with, sometimes it's just 7 numbers, right? With a dash in between. Or maybe there's no dash. Maybe it's just 7 numbers. I don't know. Maybe it starts with parentheses. So, well, we already saw parentheses used to match, used to group a regular expression, to make one regular expression in a group. So the star would apply to the whole group in this example up here. But sometimes we want to match the parentheses itself. So we use this slash parentheses. So that'll match a parentheses. Slash parentheses, okay, question mark. Question mark means that it has to be there 0 or 1 times. Basically means the parentheses that we just wanted to match is optional. Okay, so we have an optional parenthesis. So what comes after the parentheses? Well, there's 3 numbers for the area code. So it's going to put these 3 numbers inside of a group here. So slash D means match any number. And then the 3 in curly braces means match any number 3 times. Okay, so match any number 3 times. And then we want another slash parenthesis, which would say that this closing parenthesis is optional. So in this phone number regular expression, the outside parentheses are optional, but the area code is not. It wants to match an area code. Okay, to make this area code optional, you could put another question mark right here. But what would be even better would be to put the whole thing in parentheses and put a question mark, which would make this whole thing optional. But whatever. This is the example I'm using. So then there's a dash, which is optional. Okay? So it's optional because this is a question mark after the dash. The question mark means 0 or 1 times. Now, how would you match an actual question mark, do you suppose? You would put a slash question mark. So any of these special characters that you want to match, you put a slash in front of it. The funny thing is the W is the opposite. If you want to match a W, then you write W. If you want to make a W special and it means something else, you put a slash in front of it. Okay. So what if you want to match a slash, a backslash? Well, you'd escape the backslash, backslash. All right, back to the phone number. We've made it to the dash, so the dash here is optional. Okay, then what comes after that? Well, there is parenthesis, within parenthesis, 3 digits. So slash D means any number 3 times. So any number 3 times, and then a dash, then any number 4 times. So this regular expression is saying any number 3 times with optional parentheses with an optional dash. Any number 3 times with a dash, any number 4 times. Now, I was just pausing there to see if I had told you everything right about the front here, and I'm pretty sure I have. Okay, so let's move on. How do you match a Visa card number? Well, this special caret in the front says the first number, okay? So this has to be the beginning of a number, so it's checking for a space in between. So the first number has to be a 4. So it's saying the first number in a Visa is a 4. So everyone pull out your credit card. Let's see if they got this right. All right, my Amazon card. Hey, it starts with a 4. So, hey, you know what? I guess they could be onto something here. After the 4, any number 0 to 9, 12 times. So you have a 4 and 12 numbers. That's 13. Okay, my credit card number is 16, but they used to be 13 for Visas. So this is matching that. Okay. So then, this last regular expression is saying you could have any number from 0 to 9 3 times. Okay? And it's optional. And this is the end. The dollar sign at the end means this is the end. These 3 numbers come at the end. I pulled these off a website. I have no idea what this question mark colon means. That's not something that I've seen when I do regular expressions in Python. So there's, depending on the way you're doing regular expressions, there's slight variations. You're doing Perl, Python, Java, Access, SQL. Regular expressions, if you can use them, you can write queries with them. Really nice way to search through databases. Okay. You use the rfind SQL keyword to do regular expressions. Okay. American Express. Simpler than Visa. Starts with a 3. So pull out your American Express black card. Does it start with a 3? Then there's a 4 or a 7. Okay? So it's either 3, 4 or 3, 7. Then there's a 0 to 9. So any number 13 times. So we got a 3, a 4 or a 7, and then a 0 to 9, 13 times. That only adds up to 15 numbers. So whatever website I got this off of, this should be a 14, right? 3, then a 4 or a 7. That's what these braces mean. So it's either 3, 4 or 3, 7. Then, I don't have American Express. I think there's 16 numbers. Maybe there are 15. This is saying it's 15, but I thought it would be 16. But I don't have a black card from American Express. So you guys check yours out. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. I hope this gave you a few ways to think about text analytics. I started talking about the 911 calls because this is a situation where it really works. We really found differences between 911 callers. I found differences in the quarterly analyst calls subsequent to that, and they were surprising. The truth tellers used more ums and ers and ahs than the deceivers. I talked about different techniques for conducting textual analysis. I talked about dictionary-based analyses, which are groups of basically words that have a certain meaning. Talked about part-of-speech tagging and how that can be useful, and the Penn Treebank, which is basically the gold standard for accountants and finance and part-of-speech tagging. And I talked about regular expressions. If you can use regular expressions in your SQL, for example, you're going to be really good at matching text and pulling things out of text and parsing text. And it's one of the easiest ways to get into textual analysis is to learn regular expressions.